What's up and welcome to Versus Battle Cards. Today we have the rematch of the century, the evil genius versus the mad scientist. Dr. Eggman from the Sonic the Hedgehog series versus Dr. Neo Cortex from the Crash Bandicoot series. I did this fight several years ago in one of my previous Versus shows, and Dr. Cortex came out on top, with his superior accessibility to his own arsenal and being able to match Eggman blow for blow in stats. However, with my research becoming more advanced since then, and with these two characters getting new material in those past several years, I think it's time we take another look at the matchup to see if anything has changed or if it'll just be a repeat of the past. According to the Discord poll, Eggman's got it this time, and you guys have been pretty good at predicting lately, so let's see if that holds up. Starting off with the arsenal, and Dr. Eggman is a master of machines. His main vehicle of choice is the Eggmobile. It's a flying gray pod that has a pretty decent arsenal of its own. It can drop wrecking balls, spikes can stick out of it, it has grappling hooks, it can electrocute you, it can drop exploding mines, it can pick up lava and chemical to drop on his opponents. But the Eggmobile's most impressive aspect is how it can plug into pretty much any of Eggman's other robots and use them. This expands his arsenal greatly. With the Eggmobile, he can pilot the Eggwalker, a machine that seemingly can endlessly fire bullets, missiles, and lasers. Eggman has used it to break into maximum security facilities with relative ease. There's his Death Egg robot, a giant towering machine with spiky fists he can shoot out, or use to stomp on people. There's his Big Arms robot, a flying machine with spikes all over it to protect himself, and gigantic fists. We of course can't forget his modern machines either, like the Egg Beetle, which is meant to combat Sonic's speed, or the Egg Dragoon, which is meant to combat Sonic's strength. Outside of all this, while people are correct that Eggman isn't much use when he's outside of his machines, he does at the very least have a pretty cool laser gun that he can use for his self-defense. Moving on to Cortex, and this doctor actually isn't much of a machine head. He prefers to get up close and personal with his furry foe, with all kinds of different cool gadgets and gizmos. For transportation, he likes to float around on a little hoverboard, but if it ever fails him, he just has rocket boots. With them, he can either perform a super quick dash to avoid enemy fire, or he can become intangible and teleport to another location. His main method of attack is his ray gun. It can rapid fire mini plasma shots or charge up a super big one that can be reflected. According to Crash to Insanity, it also has a paralyze option, a love option, a torch option, and an insta-kill option, but that's likely the plasma shots. In Crash Bandicoot 4, however, Cortex modified his ray gun to also be able to transmutate his enemies into platforms. All of that from one little ray gun. Cortex can also generate force fields around himself, toss landmines, and he has a powerful witch doctor's mask named Uka Uka. Uka Uka can fire lasers, grants Cortex more protection of his own, can possess others, create storms and call meteors from the sky, or can sacrifice all of his energy to tear open a portal between dimensions. Overall, I yet again have to give the arsenal category to Dr. Cortex, for similar reasons as before. He has a lot easier access to his complete arsenal, he's just as useful on foot as he is in a robot, and the transmutation setting for his ray gun gives him some pretty impressive hacks. But let's see what the YouTube comment predictions are thinking. Speed-wise, the two doctors are going to be tied. Now that may be a bit confusing for Eggman's side, considering, but let me explain. See, Eggman combats with Sonic all the time, but just as frequently, Sonic completely blitzes him and outpaces him on a regular basis. Sonic can even do this in his base form, yet there are multiple times where we see that Eggman's machines are capable of pulling ahead of even Super Sonic. It's super duper inconsistent, so it can only really mean one thing. Eggman isn't catching up to fight Sonic, Sonic is slowing down to fight Eggman. So Eggman wouldn't really be able to scale to Sonic's full potential speed-wise, only his base speed, which according to Omega can match Light. But even that's being a bit generous, as again, in his base form Sonic can still outpace Eggman. Cortex is able to easily match this though, and he doesn't even need scaling. Just in Crash to Insanity, he was able to dodge bullets, lightning at close range, and of course, lasers. And in the racing spin-offs, which have been proven canon, he's able to outrace Nitrous Oxide, a space alien who can travel across entire solar systems in a relatively short amount of time. For strength, a lot of Eggman's machines are able to survive tons of hits from characters like Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. But again, like with speed, this should only scale to the base forms. Eggman does have quite a few machines that can combat with Super Sonic, Super Shadow, and all the other super forms, but those typically require a Chaos Emerald, the Master Emerald, the Time Eater, or some other form of outside helper prep time. But hey, the base forms are nothing to sneeze at either. Base Sonic can defeat Perfect Chaos, who can flood an entire city, and Base Knuckles can harness the power of the Master Emerald, which is strong enough to keep an entire island floating. However, these stats only apply to Eggman's machines. Once again, he's a lot less useful when he's outside of them. His highest feat is building level, where he survives a fall from the Lost Hex. He should not scale to the Hedgehogs physically, as games like Shadow the Hedgehog imply he could be taken down this way pretty easily. Dr. Cortex, on the other hand, goes hand to hand and toe to toe with his marsupial menace in just about every appearance they have together, which is pretty crazy considering Crash can tank a megaton of TNT crash landing from space, or how he can defeat the elementals who are responsible for all of Earth's previous natural disasters. But Cortex himself is pretty impressive too, like how he takes direct hits from Crunch, who is the one that actually is powered by the elementals, or how his mask Uka Uka can create entire island-covering storms to summon those meteors. Despite these two island-busting doctors appearing to be tied at first, I'm gonna have to give this one to Dr. Cortex. You know, considering this strength is all his, while Eggman relies on his robots. Let's see what the Discord predictions think though, as well as a video prediction from J Diamond Sonic.
I'm going to say Dr. Eggman's winning this fight. Why? Because I feel like he's evolved more in his intelligence and experience making his mechanicalisms. The reason is that the newly released Sonic Frontiers actually explains that Dr. Eggman was smart enough to create a form of an AI that's able to sustain life and evoke emotion. That's Sage, who by the way is a peak Sonic character. I don't really know if Cortex can actually handle that level of intelligence. Also, Cortex did not survive a black hole at the end of Crash 3. A black hole is defined as a celestial object so strong that not even light can escape. And it also is formed when stars are collapsing in on itself. It doesn't, happen automatically, and plus, it doesn't reverse a person's age. That just sounds stupid.
This bonus category belongs to Dr. Eggman. No, literally. Skill, Eggman wins there. He can pilot so many different types of machines and vehicles, and he always gets the closest to accomplishing his goals. Experience, Eggman. He's been battling Sonic way longer than Cortex has been fighting Crash. And of course, intelligence, Eggman. Eggman is stated to have an IQ of 300. That is completely insane. While no official number for Cortex's IQ has been given, he should be as smart as, or a little bit smarter than Coco Bandicoot, whose IQ has been stated to be 164. Also impressive, but not nearly as much as Eggman. But I'm sorry, Egghead. Despite this last-ditch effort to catch up, the winner of this fight is still going to be Dr. Neo Cortex. I really thought the results, or at the very least the reasoning for them, would be a lot different considering how much time has passed and how much better my research has gotten over the past several years. But it's pretty much still the same. In fact, it may even lean harder in Cortex's favor now. Cortex and Eggman may have comparable arsenals in size, but Cortex has a lot more hacks on his side like transmutation or Uka Uka's possession. Plus, Cortex carries all of his stuff on his person for him to use whenever he wants. Meanwhile, Eggman can only really use one of his big machines at a time. They're both comparable in speed and strength, but for Eggman's side, that's only for his machines. His physical stats don't add up to that. As soon as Cortex destroys one of Eggman's vehicles, which he is capable of doing as we've seen, one attack is all it would take to put Eggman down. Eggman is the smarter of the two, but Cortex's brawn is way too much for Eggman's brain. Eggman wouldn't be able to just think his way out of being transformed into a bouncy platform or just ignore Uka Uka's possession. Cortex has this one. But let me know what you guys think, and thank you for predicting in this episode. Be sure to predict the next one with a comment, a video response, discussing it in my Discord server, or voting in the Discord poll. And y'all are gonna like this one because we have another Disney duel, with Pixar's Ian Lightfoot versus Disney's Jafar.